the better.
Yeah,
Just
exactly right. Just viscera and pus and
mm,
plasma. Yeah,
Pus. Pus is his favorite.
I didn't
yeah, that's
enjoy
right.
it at all. Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Stream Street Day 126. That's right, and I'm joined today by it's the 40k adjacent show, so Falcon is here. There
Hello,
he is.
Kaka.
And he's been up but minutes from when he last went to sleep. And we're joined by a very special guest, Adam. I'm going to make you say your last name wrong every time. But Adam,
I'm gonna make
hello.
him
How
say
are Camilleri?
Dude, that was a good job. No, legit, good job. And yes,
Yeah.
Val has been downgraded to a much less mustached and Canadian counterpart. I'm a poor imitation of the man, but we'll do.
No.
We make do. You know, you make do.
And there's, yeah, an Australian legend, an Australian legend. Both the Falcon and I told you this off there. Val vouch for you, and as do I. I'd like to also point out as being one of the most talented 40k commentators in the world. So there's something to be said for that. But that's probably the nicest thing that we'll say today. I'm not certain. And of course, I guess the real question is, where is the Hef? Where is the Hufflefinger? Is the real question. Falcon, where is he?
He a daddy now. He became a daddy yesterday morning. Morning our time. To Jonathan Valfred Heffelfinger Jr.
That name is hilarious.
Three of those names are legitimate. One of them may be fake.
Valfred is the one that's going to stick 100%. I don't care if it is the fake one. That's what he is now.
I like that he is already like a semi-famous child. In fact, I would actually like to offer the baby a gift upon the day-ish or weekish of his birth. That I shall continue this show on, the adjacent show, until he's of age, where he could take over and be the new Hef. Which would be great to see. Yeah, I mean Valfred. I mean that's amazing. He was super happy, which is lovely.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
And it's really a beautiful baby. Rob, I don't know if you were privy to the stories I've told about babies and me, but like I won't lie to a person if they have an ugly baby. I just won't mention how pretty or beautiful their baby is. I'll just if you had a baby and it was like an ugly baby,
Yep.
And you were like, Peter, look at this, look at my son or my daughter. Oh no, I would I would say something to the effect of, "Oh, look, you had a baby," and that would be it. And that's how you know you have an ugly baby, in my opinion. So I didn't say that for Val. I tried to get it across that it was a privilege for him to hear me say it was beautiful. I don't think he got it though. I don't think he was into it.
Yeah, I think he had a lot going on, which is really exciting.
Well, maybe
yeah.
just a little bit. I don't know.
What I really enjoyed is while he was waiting for the baby to give birth, he was deeply investigating the financials of the wargaming industry as a whole. And even putting up some metadata online, which I thought was fascinating. But big congrats to the wonderful, wonderful man and his wonderful wife, and I hope they have a long and happy life together.
And Ben Clapperton, you're 100% right. Like you can have an ugly baby that turns like it can just be like the ugly duckling, turns into a goose, and then you're like, oh god, it's a goose. I mean, it's a happy, beautiful goose, but man, they're an asshole.
Man, Canadian geese, like it's a thing, yeah.
It's true. It's true. I think that's how the story goes, right? The ugly duckling.
Yeah.
I mean, but would that complete the menagerie of dangerous things in Australia if we had Canadian geese, like a natural?
If you did, no one would live there. Like already,
that's
I assume most of you are cyborgs. So.
So, just to start the show off on the adjacent show, can we introduce Adam a bit? Falcon, have you got an intro, or do you think we should let Adam introduce himself? Let
Adam introduce himself.
Adam, after you. Who are you? Like, how do we know you? Just in case someone in 40k community doesn't know you for some reason.
Okay, my name's Adam Camilleri. Yes, I live in Ballarat, Victoria, Australia. Was one half of Down Under Pairings and Down Under Network, which has now been amalgamated into Best Coast Pairings, and Down Under Network has become Art of War Down Under. And now I am a kind of semi-permanent to permanent co-host of Forge the Narrative. I'm a streamer. I was lucky enough to be part of the Ocho and stream the LVO with the lovely gentleman who's joined me today, and Val, who's not here. I deeply passionate about the community, about Warhammer, about 40k. An avid Well, I'm a fantasy player. Unfortunately, RIP, baby, come back to us. But yeah, I'm super passionate about the community. I've just started my own podcast, which is Art of War Down Under, which is launching hopefully this week, if not this week, next
Ooh,
week. It's already
baby.
the episodes have already been up for the patrons and our Patreon group, and our next episode, which is going to be me and the lovely Nick Nanavati sitting down and dissecting all the new stuff for Harlequins, that being the Harlequin Psychic War release, in addition to their points, so the full context of them running into 9th edition. So 2 episodes of that will be launched either late this week or early next week. So yeah, keep your eyes out for that. But if you don't know me, I'm not that important. I just gotta I talk's good, and I'm quite prolific. And it turns out that's enough to get you most places in this community at the moment.
Yeah. Adam
Yeah.
is the Australian Val, except he knows how to play Warhammer, so he's got that going for him.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Because there was a point like 2 years ago where Val was on every podcast, and now it's Adam.
Yes, I do have me and Val need to compare punch cards, because when we get to the 10th podcast that we've been on, I think we officially have to start our own one. Like every 10th podcast, you start your own, I guess.
Yeah, your stamp card fills up, and then they're like, "Here you go."
It's like we should do a podcast bingo.
Yes.
How many?
Yeah.
Have you been by legs 11, all the twos, 22?
Yes. My favorite is being invited onto a podcast because there's no stress. You don't have to worry at all. You just you have to make this entertaining. I'm just going to answer things. My favorite. I did one recently. I did one. I did one with the Effect warriors that are Warhammer Weekly. That's right. I've got a bit of a flame war going with them at the minute, and I'm really enjoying it. They call me a terrorist. I'm going to insult them for being well educated and smart. It's probably going to fail. I'm probably going to lose this one. I'm okay with it. And also, Mr. Mephisto. And also, go on after you.
I need to address a comment. Born Again Manchild. I assume he's referring to me. Fast becoming the Zap Brannigan of 40k. You may remember me from. If I could only aspire to be as fabulous as Zap Brannigan, I'm gonna get that outfit, that short skirt, and some velour sheets. By God, that would be a show.
Yeah.
Fireside with the Falcon, joined by Bedtime with Adam.
Yeah, just in case you didn't get enough mad love in your week. What
are you painting, Rob? People need to know what you're painting.
Oh, I'm mainly doing this so that I can concentrate and not fiddle with my phone. I'm painting Catafron Destroyers, which is very on topic for the conversation. They've got flamers, FYI, and plasmas. I'm a big fan of Riser. My Mechanicum
is that Riser?
Yeah, Riser themed. And have been. So I'm just painting these guys up. They've been in they've been in a box for the best part of 2.5 years. And so I was always going to run the if I go first, I win 40k build of 12 of them previously.
Nice.
But if I go second, I lose. Yeah, sure, I will. But unfortunately, they're on topic, right? Because they've taken a hit, Pete.
A little bit. They took a little bit of a hit. Yep. Points seem to have been adjusted to try and counteract how terrifying AdMech were. And I think it worked about 50%. We'll have to wait for everything to come through. I think that they still have 2 builds that are absolutely face-wrecking terrifying, but it's not like the entire army is just an awful mess of destruction now, which is good. I'm very happy that it looks like they took some context out of the playtesting and toned them down a bit.
Yeah, well, so yeah, that's what I'm painting anyway.
And I know what you're saying is the detachment went away, the specialist detachment, but either way, they did a good job. I'm super okay with no more specialist detachments, other than the fact that it nerfs because they didn't need it anymore. But hopefully that'll get addressed. So.
Yeah, yeah. I don't mind at all that it got taken away. I've actually I don't know how I feel about these models. Now I'm painting them a bit. I feel like I like them a bit more. Maybe that's some sort of psychological effect. But I do just I've ran them in their unpainted version for a while. 66 or 12d6 plasma shots, which is fun. And even if you don't supercharge it, it's got some great AP. and it's got some good range, so it's really fun. I don't know how the points have ended up settling on these guys at the minute, so I need to do that later. But I'm going to be playing a game with them. But that's what I'm painting, and I am looking. So I'm playing a game with them today, so we'll see how they play. But I really want some sulfur hounds, but I don't have any yet. Oh my god, those guys are so great.
They are.
Adam, did you have something to show us?
I did. I have like 12 riser painted Cataphrone breaches that I literally just unpacked and put away into my somewhere, and they've absolutely disappeared from all realms. They've gone into the warp.
Oh,
I hate it when that happens. I hate it when that happens, guys.
Such is life.
Yeah. So
I remember them.
Yeah.
Cool. I gotta show and tell something now that I've done this. 1 second.
Oh no, not again. This is going to be the whole show, Rob. He's literally going to come sit down, remember something else. He's going to come back with a piece of fairy bread.
Peter, with your clever quips and things and stuff.
Where's your fairy bread? Where's your fairy bread?
Fairy bread is delicious.
What is
I
fairy
don't
bread?
understand.
But yeah, this is what I finished painting earlier this week. This is my
Oh, nice. Is that a Heresy Contemptor?
Horus Heresy Dark Angels Contemptor. Yeah, I am in love with this lad. OG as well, with the Volkite and the Fist. So they're like one of the worst possible loadouts, but you know, you do what you do. You know, it's Heresy. It's not to be taken seriously. It's to be enjoyed and loved. And this model, absolutely adore it. Love it to bits.
Yeah, well, I'm painting my my 40k AdMech is painted after my 30k AdMech, which is on the screen. So my Myrmidons, I love, and I'm trying to find an excuse to use them as something else. I don't know if anyone would let me, but I've also there's a whole bunch of Heresy stuff I've got that I'm thinking of just using as something else and just being like, is that okay? Do you reckon that's okay? Because the models are just lush, but I don't think we'll get away with it. I'll try though. I'll just use podcast power. I'll be like, come on, man, I'll just big you up on the show. That's the thing. Anyway, so the thing I was going to talk about or mention was obviously the GT pack came out this weekend, but did it come out? It was available for people to see with their eyes this weekend, is the point. And what was I saying? And obviously they've taken away specialist detachments. Pete said he's in favour of it. Adam, what are your thoughts?
I'm in favour of it simply because I feel like it's an abandoned project by GW. I feel like Vigilus came out, they tested the water, and now I feel like they've abandoned that as a kind of part of the game. And if they're not going to continue with it and give that same kind of efficiency and those same things to armies across the board, then they should scrap it. So that makes me feel like that they are no longer, they're not going to be continuing with that kind of flavor or adding those kind of things to the game, and therefore if they're not going to support it, they should leave it behind, because admittedly, it is a huge boon to the armies that have it. Like the armies that have good ones, they are very good, like Grey Shield, like the Hammer of Sunderance for Guard, which I'm going to miss deeply, things of that ilk. They were very powerful, very polarizing bits of the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that same vein, do we assume that they're also leaving Gene Stealer Cults behind? Is that the general plan?
Well, I would say after seeing the rules for this edition, after seeing the points for Gene Stealer Cult, now after seeing this, they're fucking dead. They're in a
bad
really
spot.
Rough spot, man. Really
They're
rough spot.
in a really bad. It's telling. Like I've been watching. I try to watch a lot of tape on from the playtesters, etc., just to get a feel before we start getting games in. And I think the Tabletop Titans video was probably the most of the stuff they were talking about as being advantageous was just stuff from the Guard Codex. And they're like, oh, you got to run Chimeras with Brood Brother Guardsmen in him, and a lot so that you can sit on objectives. And then I was like, oof. Can you mention an actual GSC unit for a minute? And then cross fingers waiting to hear. We'll have to see. I think one thing we're learning about this edition as we start seeing people play games with the GHB pack, not General's Handbook, what am I talking about? Anyway, the GT pack is that just maybe we might be wrong on our knee-jerk reactions on some factions. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I think hordes actually do have a place in this game, not to the same 300 body extent, but 100 bodies. definitely.
And spread across 10 to 15 units, not just 3
Exactly.
units with 100 dudes. Yeah.
If you have like two blobs of 30 guys, if you have something for them, and then just, 6 or 7 10-man squads, I think that's like a legit strategy in this edition because you can score primary so fast with that kind of a thing. So it'll be curious to see how it all plays out in the end, because what you're seeing a lot of people building for lists are like very MSU elite heavy armies, and not a lot of horde killing, not a lot of blast, not a lot of all this other stuff. So it'll be curious to see how the game evolves with that in mind. I'm really curious, really intent on watching how this
me
plays
too.
out.
I feel like the way the meta is going. So if I was to call the meta right now, I'd say people were going to walk into this for the first like 2 to 3 months thinking it was going to be a vehicle edition. I think it was going to be this hard hit. Let's take stuff that's hard hitting and resilient. Where I believe in reality is going to be it's whoever's like got a decent lead on points by turn 3. Literally is going to win. Like I feel like in the early days is going to win 89% of their games. I've even had it from people who've played 20 games of just the basic rulebook missions that whoever went first won like just about every time. Now, naturally, the GT pack might be completely different, but yeah, from feedback I've said, if you go first, you win. What does that mean? That means that people get on the point scoring early. People who get that onto the objectives before their opponent and have that resilience on there or those numbers, they get to dictate the pace of the game. And so I'm thinking that these like things like Death Guard or things that have horde killing in their obsec, things like custodes, things like Grey Knights, are probably going to be stupidly well positioned to go the distance, I reckon.
Yeah, can we break that down just for people who are new, just in case? So obviously in the new 40k, because I think those are excellent points, but just like to make it translate that down a bit, is in the new 40k you can score 45 points for your primary missions, and primary mission is it's if you play the Sigmar, it's the same. You get on objectives and you score points, but the difference is you have to stay there until the beginning of your next turn. So there's an entire turn where your opponent gets the ability to maybe push you off. So we've talked about this on the 40k show quite a bit, and we've talked, those resilient like objective secure units or units that can go and sit on objectives are going to be quite valuable. That's the show that we're going to talk about. We're going to do that on Thursday as well. We're going to just pick we're going to pick a couple of codexes each and just pick our units to maybe go and do that job. There's probably lots around that, but but that scores you 45 points, and that's 45 points you can guarantee if you can do it. Whereas the secondaries is like a very interesting mix-up, and the secondaries are a bunch that you pick from. Now, you've got the big book, the big rule book, and that's got submissions in, it's got secondaries, but the thing that we're talking about today is the GT pack. So that is the pack that you would use at a tournament, and if you're playing match play, that might not necessarily be tournament play, but this tournament play book is that. And there's some interesting, change ups on there, and what Adam was talking about was the units and the armies that might do really well in that setup. I agree with you. I think it's all about that jumping on those objectives. But do you think it's that people can't push people off the objectives? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it's either there's going to be 2 ways to go about it. I think armies that can get on the objectives quickly and then either maintain that presence by flooding the board, things like double moving termagants, double moving guardsmen, things of that ilk, things that aren't resilient but have maneuverability and flexibility, or you go the other route, which I think is the Death Guard Custodes route, and it's just that when you get to those objectives, you're an absolute bitch and a half to get off them. And getting there with force, in which case you can rebuff people's inroads, or just being indomitable. Like when you get there, you're just like, hey buddy, anything that comes anywhere near us within this 9-inch influence of range or whatever, shooting or combat, is just going to get absolutely mauled. I think there's a few different ways to go about it, but I think that the armies that can do both of those things, that's why I think Death Guard, AdMech to a degree, Cateron Breaches, Cataphon Destroyers definitely make that ilk, especially with the Feel No Pain. And on top of that, I feel like Grey Knights might be a fringe case for that, but certainly Death Guard, Custodes, AdMech all have those big plays.
Do you not think Marines also in kind they're not quite as tanky, but they've just got a lot of wounds and a lot of 3-up arms?
Well, mate, I can't tell you at any time in any meta at any year of the game that has ever existed where a 2 wound, 5+ invuln, 5+ feel no pain intercessor is going to be a bad choice.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
it's just never going to be. It's never going to be bad, man.
Iron
It's
Hands
just- oh,
still feel really good.
Yeah.
I think that there's some merit to White Scars now because of some of the
Absolutely.
changes. That like moving, advancing, outflanking Leviathan that shoots as if it like shoots assault instead is pretty ridiculous with storm cannons. Still a good buy at 350 points. Like there's a lot of really good stuff coming out. It's interesting to see the community's response versus like the playtester response, because the playtesters are saying a lot of like, give it time, you'll adapt, and you'll see that it's not a first turn game. And I can see some merit in that because what'll happen is people will eventually, they'll tech to it. They'll say, okay, well, this always happens, so I'm going to have to take these units in order to deal with that. I mean, already I'm seeing a lot of people, and even me, like I'm teching in my lists towards Death Guard and Custodes. Like, how do I remove X amount of Plague Marines? How do I remove X amount of Alaris Custodians off of an objective? And because like those are things you need to be able to do in your current list. But you're also thinking, okay, well, what if somebody takes 100 guardsmen? How am I going to clear out at least 2 squads a turn? Because that's how they're going to hold objectives, right? Is they're going to plop a chimera and 2 squads on an objective and say, you have to kill all of this if you want this.
Yeah.
So that they flood with bodies. So then so in my list, I now have to think, okay, well, what can I take that can do that in a turn, or at least contest when I'm done? So it's going to be like I think we do need to let it play out a little bit. Best in Faction podcast played like 5 or 6 games over the weekend.
I caught a bit of that.
And it was very interesting to see like what was working and what wasn't, but it's still so early and people still have no idea what's going on yet, right? Like how to pick secondaries, etc. It'll be I'm interested. I'm a little excited, little trepidatious as always that that the knee-jerk reaction is maybe the correct one from the community. Because people have been desperately wrong before.
Yeah, I think like you can just go off like how you feel at the start, right? You read it and you start putting it into practice, and there's so much you can learn from that. And I think anyone ever is just like play games and you'll learn and you'll get better at it with those experiences. I mean, I've only been able to get 2 games under my belt so far. The thing for me, like, just as a game, is it felt far more interactive because I have to put a unit there, the opponent has to put a unit there, and I felt that that's really good. And there's also like some really good conversations later on down the line. Well, how much resource am I committing into the midfield onto those objectives, but leaving my backfield, like, which I don't want to get hit with something small or like locked up, or there's so many really good conversations that can be had. I think it's genuinely an exciting game. I think they maybe just missed the mark on loads and loads of points, and that's been my go-to. And I will complain if I think it sucks, but like I got at the minute, apart from points, I got nothing bad to say. I'm just like, I hope it's not as maybe boring as just like run everything into the middle. Maybe it is, but at least the combat phase is generally fairly engaging most of the time. Yeah. Go on, Adam, after you.
That's an interesting thing you just pointed out there. So were you playing Age of Sigmar when it first launched, Rob?
Yes, since the beginning.
That's
day one.
That's exactly. Me too. I was playing day one as well. That's exactly what it launched was like. Okay, scrum in the middle. One side just gets absolutely wiped in 3 turns, or worse yet, you scrum in the middle on turn 1, and then the next 5 turns is just rolling combat. No model is moving. If you're lucky, you get to pile in. Mm-hmm. That was boring as fuck. In addition to all the wonky ass, if you've got a beard, you get +1 to hit, and if you bray like a goat, you're gonna get an extra roll on your.
I like that. Yeah. You're not changing my mind. That's not fun. Yeah, I'm into that.
I'm winning you over. Yeah, but no. So like, for a competitive game, that stuff was just obnoxious. That they thought it was going to be. Yeah, it could be taken seriously. I suppose that was the point. It wasn't to be taken seriously. But there was this thing when I started looking at the new missions. Well, the ones I haven't, not so much the ones in the GT pack, but more the ones in the basic codex. I was just like, okay, so in this mission to do well, I have to run into the middle. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. This mission to do well, run into the middle. This one as well. I'll run into the middle. 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 Okay, interesting. I'm seeing a theme here. Then all of a sudden I was like, okay, so all I need to do is just take resilience or mast and run into the middle. Cool. Thank God Tau went up in points because holy crap, the Siegler-esque Tau would have just been a goddamn nightmare.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I
just
actually think
patent built.
so. Like, obviously, the Age of Sigmar game obviously adapted, and they basically took on War Machine Horde style scenarios. And then that run into the middle was actually really interesting. Like I talked about at the top of the show, you're asking me about my AdMech. I really want some Sulphur Hounds because they got that 9-inch scout at the start of the game. And now I'm just like, that's awesome. So if my opponent's getting the choice, go first or second, either way, I'm getting to put those out. Maybe I'm blocking them moving on to the objective, which is big for first turn for scoring. Maybe he's taking the turn now because he wants to clear them off the objective so he can put stuff on. Or maybe he has to give me the turn knowing that I'm putting more stuff. But they're pushing up. So there's those fun interactions early on, which the Age of Sigmar game is really, really fun for because you've got so many units that you just put into the midfield as a sacrificial like first turn trade, a bit like pawns in chess, right? Like you sacrifice, so you bring your bigger piece in, and that is actually really, really exciting because well, I don't know, like again, haven't played enough games for it to play out, but I feel like that there's a really exciting game there in that trade-off. Maybe it's just all output, and someone could just put enough output on the board that it doesn't matter. But
Yeah, I don't think anyone's played enough games, but yeah, you're right. And maybe like we've talked about with AdMech, maybe it is just going to end up being like it's an output game. Did you bring enough Dakabots or whatever? Wrath of Mars, everybody to death. Maybe it is everybody goes in the middle and bumps heads for you smash like your GI Joes together for 5 turns because Death Guard is the way. Like who knows right now, and that's the best part for me, is waiting to see how a meta evolves, and hopefully we'll actually get to see it once the Rona gets out of everybody's way, because I don't want to only see New Zealand play this game competitively.
Yes.
So. Nothing against the Kiwis, but I would rather see a worldwide meta rather than just that one.
So that was an interesting thing you said that, Rob, just talking about how in the first couple of turns for Age of Sigmar is a lot about maneuverability, picking your spot, getting your opening. I feel like 5th, 6th, 7th edition of 40k, that was exactly what we had. We had this first 2 turns was positioning, trying to gun up a flank, getting the right motions involved, because all the points were scored at the end of the game. There was no impetus to get involved early. There was no impetus to jump into your opponent's face. Had a fundamental change in 8th edition, which meant everyone either wanted to absolutely decimate their opponent's turn 1 and 2, or clog the board up to such a degree their opponent couldn't contest the mission, turns 1 and 2. But now, with firstly terrain being more prevalent, only being a 5-turn game and it being progressive scoring, I don't think there's enough time to pick your spot. I think you have to play a list in an army that's going to be doing a lot of things straight off the bat. I'm not sure if I like it or dislike it. I just think it's different. If I had to say off my gut whether I like it or dislike it, I actually would say this rule set would feel better on a 6-turn game when you didn't feel forced to be doing so many things so early. And because while it's going to make it for dynamic games, quicker games, and it's going to cause a lot of mistakes, which is going to create a lot of learning, a lot of interplay, a lot of interesting things to discuss. I feel on a generalship level, this being a shorter game and a much quicker game, plus the fact that a lot of the game-to-game dynamics have been stripped back, e.g., picking different warlord traits, different relics, all those things. Your game-to-game. So if you have a dominant meta. Like let's say Space Marines are just the predominant meta they were at the end, whereas 50% of armies are Space Marines. I feel like this could be quite a boring addition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and actually, if I can give any feedback on it, is with Age of Sigmar, it's very true that we would have so there were a lot of Alpha Strike style armies, right, and there still are to some degree. And by alpha, and we're not necessarily talking about alpha striking. We're talking about units that just jump onto those objectives and stay there, right? That's the key, kind of the key element. But very similar also in Age of Sigmar. Now, what you ended up with was kind of a sliding scale, rock paper scissors of armies that would take the counter-strike, or they would take that stuff that would move into the midfield, and they would be terrible at maybe a long-term game, and maybe they'd give up the first turn, and they'd push, and then there was I think old Sylvaneth 1-drops, their entire mission was, they went first, they put their entire army right on your line, and then they were like, I've pinned you in, can you beat me turn 5? But can you push me off by turn 3, where I'm up on all the objectives and score all the points? That used to be their play style. And the answer was sometimes yes, sometimes no. But then there were counter plays, leaving stuff off the board. It was a really, really fun game. And then because there were so many versions of that, there was a lot of interaction. And I think 40k might have that as well. You know, is there stuff in vehicles? Is it blobs of dudes? Is there a bunch of stuff that's like, behind, left off the board? You're right, but it's going to be really exciting finding out. I think, like Pete said, like unlocking that puzzle is really, really fun. I read in the chat, and it was beautiful. It was. Those poor silver. I'm so sorry. How do you guys feel about? So some of the things that people were hoping for in the GT pack were things like not a roll off for the first turn. How do you guys feel about that? I like it, but that's, you guys can have different opinions, obviously. What do you think?
Pete, I've talked for ages. You have a go.
So my concern is they didn't change anything from the rulebook pack, and like my biggest thing for it was there's a role for attacker defender. The defender gets to pick deployment zone. Then right now at least the only benefit I can see for being the attacker is you get to see one unit placed. And then it's back and forth, and then it's an equivalent roll off to see who goes first. So the defender has really no negatives. Like it is all positive for that defender role, and that is a concern to me. I think like every game has like a first or second is like the beneficiary or attacker defender. There's always like a slight variation. I am a little concerned that maybe defender is too strong at this point. I mean, yes, it is a 50-50 shot with the roll at the end, but that 50-50 shot heavily favors the guy that also gets to pick his deployment zone. So that's my big concern with the way of doing things right now. Maybe it won't be an issue, but that's been my concern since the beginning was, are they going to address that in the GT pack? Are they going to give the attackers any kind of benefit other than like that slight bit of seeing one unit placed?
I mean, this roll-off only exists in a tit for tat deployment style. You cannot have this in a I deploy, you deploy, I deploy my entire army, you deploy your entire army. It just doesn't function because nothing feels worse than getting counter deployed and then not going first.
Exactly.
It's like it's just the worst feeling ever. Like, and that's what we got when the Seas. It was a feel bad moment. But this would be literally a 50-50. It would create very passive deployments. I feel like that's what we're going to get here. It's going to get very you could almost make a standard deployment for your own army now. It's not going to vary much. I know as a guard player, I'm pretty much going to deploy literally based on the terrain and the deployment zone. Very little is going to be interacted by my opponent's decisions. Very, very little, because I'm always going to be deploying defensively because I have to, because I don't often going first or second.
Oh, okay. I think that's really, really interesting. I quite like the roll off personally. I definitely like tit for tat deployment. I actually think I understand absolutely where you're coming from, but I also like the idea of like if I can make you be defensive in a way that you don't want to be, I think that's also important. There's something more that maybe I put myself on the line, and you're like, do I take that as bait? I think there's more to it than you deploy, I deploy. I prefer you go, I go deployment. I don't think I would. I don't like the other way at all. I think there's nothing to it. So I think this is more. I don't know, Pete. What do you think?
They both have their merits. I think we saw at the end of 8th when people were using like the ITC full deploy. It didn't seem to cause that many issues. There were actually a lot of people in the community that loved it once they started doing it from a speed perspective. At the same time, I personally didn't. I thought I liked the back and forth because it added that extra layer of strategy to what you were doing. The not knowing if you're going first or second is always a big thing, because then you have to decide if you're going to take a risk or not. Versus when they go first, go second. Really heavily favored particular armies at the time, at least. Like Raven Guard loved it. If you knew you were going first as Raven Guard, like it was a bad scene for your opponent. Like 90% of the time. There's a reason why they had like a 65% win rate there when it was all starting to peter out. But yeah. So I don't know. I like I said, I really wish there was at least something for being the attacker right now.
You feel like it's a poorly weighted equation at the moment?
Yeah, it's not like it's heavily weighted. It's not like I think the defender is going to win 90% of their games. I just feel, and I know Pete Pratt made a comment, if tournaments bring like super symmetrical terrain, then that won't be that big of a deal. But not a lot of events can do that, right? Even if you look at something like LVO, they don't like it's relatively symmetrical, but there's always a deployment zone that's better.
Sorry, Peter, do you know who picks that deployment zone?
The defender picks the deployment zone.
Defender picks deployment zone, yeah.
So there is.
It feels like, yeah.
I was going to say there is one mission in the new GT pack which does actually favour the attacker.
Yes, the one where you move objectives.
Yeah, which I also don't like that. Yeah. So if you guys don't know, people listening, there are 5 objectives, 4 of which are movable, and the attacker gets to move the first one with the defender moving the next 2, and then the attacker moves the last one, I think is the ordering.
Yeah. So obviously the assumption there is the attacker denies the defender their best option first up, and then they get 2 lesser options. Yeah, that's generally the assumption, right?
Yeah. Do you guys like that? Do you think that makes because if you wanted that to actually affect the attacker, you would have to put that in all GT packs, right? That would have to be the one mission you always put in. I don't think I overly love that mission, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I haven't played it.
I haven't played it. I haven't played it either. So honestly, on paper, I like it. I like mixing it up with these small variables, these small little bits of interplay. I think so. I'm of the opinion. I think I've said this on like 4 or 5 podcasts now, that I'm all for any mission that promotes interaction between the opponents, positive interaction, back and forth interactions, whatever that may be, as long as there's a positive interaction, not one that's based on different interpretations of rules. As long as it's well worded and promotes interaction, I like it in being in my missions. And so I like this one. I think it's a good thing to have in there.
You are preaching to the choir. Like, that is the key element of the war game, right? Balance, whatever. Yeah. But interactivity, the more interactivity, which is why I like the deployment. I even like the roll-off. Like, that's important for that interactivity, right? It's just like, I've gone aggro, you've gone defensive. And then, like, have you gone too defensive if the roll-off happens? Like, I don't know if you can be too defensive in 40k. There's maybe if the ranges were shorter on some of the weapons, maybe you could, but the ability to reach out and touch stuff in 40k is pretty vast. It's not really pulled back by that.
So here's my point against what you were saying before about the roll being so good. If you won the roll and you had to stick with what the roll was, I think it would be better than it is. Because right now I deploy defensively and then we roll off. And if you deploy defensively as well, and I'm not going to do anything first turn, I just make you go first if I win. If I lose and you go first anyway, I've lost nothing. There's only one option of the 3 options that's actually detrimental to deploying negatively, is what I'm saying. Deploying defensively negatively.
But that's the weakness of deploying defensively, right? Like, if you don't have those options to do something, that's what I was talking about with the Sulphur Hounds and the ability to jump onto stuff. You can, in the list building phase, just go, actually, I'm going to mitigate this a little bit, still be defensive, do stuff. I don't know. More to see, and I'm not really super set on my opinion either.
No, you are, Rob. You always are. I cannot think of anything you've ever had an opinion on where you weren't just 100% set in your way. This is how it is. I mean, you always say it. You're always like, guys, you can change my mind. You cannot change his mind. People keep that in mind. You cannot change his mind.
I will say mine will probably change. Unlike Rob, I haven't actually got any games in 19 yet. I'm hoping to get my first games in this weekend. So who knows? I might come back and be like, Rob, you're right. I was talking at my ass.
No,
and I'm the same. And I'm joking about Rob with this, but I'm a numbers guy. That's what I'm mostly keen in. So once I start seeing numbers, my opinion will immediately change, right? I rely on that to figure this shit out. So.
Yeah, well, I think Adam's point is the best point that there is. Is the more the game is interactive, the better it is. Were there any other changes in GT Pack? They obviously changed up all the secondaries. Falcon, I know that you had some dramas with the secondary, or not dramas, but they didn't seem cohesive, or they weren't fully formed.
There were a few secondaries that I really didn't like. I think they fixed a lot of that. There's some really good stuff in the secondaries. I think there's a number of secondaries that may be a little too win more, but maybe that's on purpose. Maybe they want you to fall into little traps, which is cute. That new Slay the Warlord secondary is a bleh, 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 bleh. Don't take that.
Don't ever take that.
Playing knights, unless your opponent's taking knights or something with a giant warlord you can blow off the table turn 1. Don't do it.
But that does give you an answer
Blech.
to knights. Like, that is just like, there's the knight, I'll go hit that, I guess. But it's a terrible, yeah. If you guys don't know, you get less points the further the game is along for killing the warlord. And it's not normally, maybe it's to discourage something like a Smash Captain. Maybe. Like,
Yeah,
they,
like it's really easy to defend against. You can reserve anything now. So
Yeah,
if your opponent
exactly.
takes Warlord, unless you're playing Knights or something where you really want them on the board turn one, or like Magnus or Morty, just be like, I'm reserving him. And now you immediately lost at least 3 points, if not 7, because it's 6 points for the third turn. So there's a lot of counterplay, and maybe you pick it just so that you don't have that guy on the table. That's also maybe like that's the point of that counterplay.
Well, yeah,
is you say I'm going to take Warlord so that you keep Morty off the table for 2 turns, right? Like
exactly right.
It's really that's the interesting part to me. I don't think it's good. I really think it'll just not be taken very often. But
Like it's either going to be taken 0% of the time, or at such a high level that no one's ever going to consider it except for that one exact mission at that time of those 2 armies.
yeah, that's actually a really clever play. It's just like, I'm going to get 15 points. You got Magnus on the board. It's like, shit, I'm not going to put him on the board. Like, that's clever. Yeah.
But then, then you would structure
Go on, sorry.
the score so much easier because Magnus isn't on the board.
Sorry, Adam, you broke up there. One more go on that one.
And then you would couple that with taking 2 secondaries that are so much easier to score when that warlord isn't on the board. So you're forcing them to play differently and then capitalizing on it as much as you can. I like that kind of stuff. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it is really fun. Is there anything in the GT pack you would have expected to see that we didn't see?
The rule of 3 is in the basic is in the core rulebook, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's in like the advanced rules. Yeah.
I haven't seen it there, but I've heard from everyone that it's there. But I just haven't noticed it yet, even though I went looking for it because GW books. So yeah, nothing jumps out at me that I haven't seen yet. Mind you, I haven't got a page for page document of the GT book. Like we're missing a mission, could be missing other pages for all we know.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I've got all the missions. They reposted the one that was missing. I think the only thing that's missing is the like 1,000 point missions. That being said, there might be a page that's missing that's like, psych, here's some extra stuff you didn't realize. Ba, ba, ba. Right? Because this is just somebody taking pictures from their like local store copy that got pulled out early. So who knows what's actually in there. Tie winning, are you guys worried at all about a shift to unfun denial style lists? Not really. A lot of the more denial lists, at least right now, that people are considering, at least there is some back and forth. Like if you look at the Death Guard lists, people are thinking up with Chaos Spawn is kind of like that central thing, like I was talking about last week or the week before. Even those, like you're still banging models in the middle. You still have to worry about your like 1 10-man Plague Marine squad because that's like all of your damage output getting killed. And Chaos Spawn aren't OBSEC. So if you get the right unit on top, like even like a Custodian Guardsman, you're scoring that point, and at least there's that kind of a back and forth. So I'm not overly concerned yet. That being said, you never know when like the hive mind creates like a 300 Poxwalker list, and you have to say like, oh that happened, did it? You jerks.
So I find denial-based games. Well, so denial versus denial, I find a very fun game. I might be off my rocker here, but I like a game that comes down to like 3 or 4 small crucial decisions that you might know that only like literally the better player will recognize. That stuff I like. When it's like a person who's not equipped or not readily like G'd up to go into that kind of thing, it's really negative, and I agree with that. There was a Gaunt Carpet army that was notorious in Australia. It went undefeated for 9 months by this one gentleman who was playing it. Won every tournament he went to for 9 months.
Wow.
And didn't drop a single game. And
I was going to bring that up actually.
He played denial at such a high level that if you weren't exactly tailored to beat him, you didn't have a chance. And the problem was, if you tailored to beat him, you didn't get to him. You didn't make it to play against him on the top table, doing the event, because you got knocked off by the guy playing Iron Hands like 3 rungs down. So that's a really, really real problem. But I feel like the armies that play that way now is not going to be It's not going to be like that. It's going to be your AdMech. It is going to be your Custodians. It's going to be your Death Guard. Now, the things that those things are exposed to is the vast majority of the time they're foot-slogging armies with low mobility. Generally, the issue is that once they get to objectives, getting them off them is so erroneously difficult. But there are things you can do. Like one of the best ways that I've been thinking, conjuring about how to deal with Death Guard is just roadblocking them. Here's a 10-man piece of crap I do not care about. It's going to deny you 3 inches of movement this turn. I'm going to do that for 3 turns. Yeah. And if that denies you one objective that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, that's a 15-point swing across the length and breadth of the game. Something as simple as that. So the thing about denial armies is you got to look at other ways. You can't take them on like a conventional puzzle. It's like you can't look at it as just like, oh, if I kill that, kill that, kill that. Don't even consider killing them. Just try and stop them doing what they want to do. It doesn't have to be removing models.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. Roadblocking stuff is like so much fun in AOS, and this is what I'm really excited about in doing in 40k as well. Especially as you've got some pretty high mobility on some units, so their ability to just run into your opponent's line. Obviously, movement happens before shooting, so you just ability to just pin. If you can just go, because you're like, all I have to do is stop you moving onto the objective this turn.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all I have to do. Just move. That unit there can die, but I just have to do that. If I can do that 2 or 3 turns, I might drop your primary points from 45 down to 30. That gets me the game.
Exactly right.
And I think that's so interesting. And I think it like and that's why like I am hype. I can't stop like writing lists, looking at units, like looking at the missions, and for a commentary perspective, and actually I feel incredibly blessed to have both of you on the show here to ask this question. Do you not think that will make it a far more engaging? Well, again, we haven't played enough to know precisely, but right now it feels like it would make a far more engaging game to watch on the tabletop.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more dynamic. It's going to be a lot more things going on for a shorter period, but much more explosive. And I think the depth might not be there, but the depth within the interplay of the opponents might not be there, but the interplay of the models is going to matter a lot more. And I think from a purely spectating and content creation point of view, I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
Last edition, I used to be able to talk for an hour on just the list decisions players made pre-game. I could talk for an absolute hour on that stuff. Why did you choose this warlord trait? Which relics did you pick? What's he using that for? What's this for? What's the psychic powers about? Blah 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 blah. That stuff's going to go away. But the fact is, I'm not going to have to talk for an hour because the first 2 turns of the game is literally nothing going on. So that's just going to be fantastic for me. On top of that, I'm going to be talking for less, like a total of less time. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Man, Pete joined me for the was it day 3 of the LVO, where we literally streamed for, was it 16 hours straight?
Was it day 3? Day 2. I think day 2 was the 16-hour day. Yeah, that was a bad day for me by the end. But yes,
I'd be happy for that not to be a thing again. But I'm happy I've done it now.
Yeah, my back hurt so bad. Oh, it was such a rough. By the end of that, carrying all the equipment.
I think that level of dynamic interplay on the tabletop will actually be genuinely fascinating for viewers. But I also feel like from a gaming perspective, maybe you guys think it might be boring, I'm not sure. I feel like it's also really interactive as well. Because, there might be the unmovable block on the objective. There might be. Yeah, but then the question is can you shift it? Like, and maybe the answer is no. Maybe it's as simple as that. But like that's a fun kind of like, Rocky versus Apollo Creed kind of moment. It's like are they going down? Is it happening? And it's fun to keep that that energy up, I think. And so from like, especially I found ITC quite dull to watch because it felt very by the numbers, and it was just like check. This feels like it's far more like unit dependent and board space dependent. But that's obviously like I know you guys don't agree. I feel like it will be anyway.
I disagree about the old ITC, but only at the top level. I think you're right when it came to like a mid-table. If you like commentating a mid-table game, because sometimes that would happen. You would do like SoCal, and someone would be like, "Hey, can you do this game instead?" And it's one really like top nail player, and then it's a secondary guy. That's meh. You saw it at LVO a lot, right? Because GW loves their like really highly painted armies. They don't care about the competitive side. They don't want that until the last day. So those games, yes, super often very boring because there's generally like one guy that's just way better than the other player. But then you watch those like high level plays from two top players going at it, and those were always exciting to me. Like if you talk about when I commentated BAO and Jeff Robinson versus Jim Vessel final. That was an amazing game, pretty much start to finish. There was it was extremely tactical. There wasn't a round where you sat watching being like, what is happening here? In that same tournament, Jim Vessel versus John Lennon. If you didn't understand 40K, that game was boring as all get out. But for someone that understood what was happening, the movement and how like nothing was dying. Jim Vessel completely forgot a unit to deploy it, and it died. He didn't deep strike. It was the first time he'd ever done that. He didn't deep strike his bloodletters, and it died. So everyone thought he was going to lose. But his board control was so strong that all it took was John Lennon forgetting one psychic power in one turn, and he won the game off of it. Like those games were so exciting to me. I think you're right that this edition will be better for that. Like this will be a more exciting edition just because 5 rounds. You have 5 rounds to get everything done. You don't score turn 1, but that's like your only turn you have to get into position. After that, it's going to be a back and forth. Yep. And even if it becomes a denial game, like we were talking about earlier with like the Eric Lathoris style lists, that's the person Adam was talking about earlier with the Gaunt carpet. Like if your commentators know, like they can talk that up. Brandon Grant, if you watch that man play, his denial is like, I would put him and Eric on about the same point. Eric was very methodical because he did it over and over again, right? Like it's like, I'm going to do this. There was very little counterplay when you watched him play, unless he was playing very specific people. It was like, this is where I move every time. When you watch Brandon, every game is different. Like he always plays to his opponent, and it is so amazing to watch his little guardsmen screw up every plan that his opponent makes. Because it's so fun to watch. But like to an untrained eye, it looked boring as F. He's like, oh, he's just moving dudes. Who cares? He's not killing anything. But that wasn't the point, right? He'd block off so much area that he would win off of primaries. And that's what I'm hoping to see in this edition too. It's going to be good. I am always going to be cautiously optimistic because, like I keep saying, you never know when some guy's going to be like, oh, I found this combo and it's broken. And that's it. So.
Yes,
you want to hear?
Go on. Adam,
I make a big call. I like to try and make a Adam's ring a ding big call of the day thing for every podcast I'm on. Okay. My one for this one is if we ever see a denial heavy meta, everyone bring out their Thunderfire cannons and their movement shenanigans, their movement denial shenanigans. Everyone get their Tanglefoots, their Obscurus Discipline, what is it, Shadow Spear, Phobos Librarians, anything that you've got that impedes your opponent's movement. Like, I was just thinking about Death Guard then, and how everyone likes to have their big blubber dudes that cloud of flies behind everything else. The issue with that is they have to stay behind the guys they're in front of. Halve the movement of the guys they're in front of, you F the whole playbook. Things of that ilk, if we get a denial meta, guys, just remember Adam saying this right now, this little box, this little square, and the little box of the square. Bring that stuff up. That stuff will be gold.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that there's a lot more in list building other than can I kill, and not that that's what 40k was. It's just I don't know. That's where my head is a bit, and I'm not shy about saying that I didn't love all of 8th edition because of the way the game played in some ways, and I feel like this is really exciting. So what needs to even happen now? Is this it done? Is this like 9th out? Like, maybe there needs to be some more of the GT book scene, maybe. But, like, are we there now? Or are we...
I think we are.
Yeah. We've got points.
This is it.
Yeah, this is it. This is exciting. Like, I know the actual official launch date is this Saturday, right? I think.
Yes. Yeah. I'm of the opinion the game's been out for 3 weeks already. But it's launched this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, we need the app, of course.
We do.
We do. We need a way to build armies, right? War Scroll Builder's not
theoretically.
Updated yet. Not War Scroll Builder, Battlescribe. Sorry.
Battlescribe's supposed to be updated on Friday, whenever they're allowed to do it.
Yes!
Yeah, they would have like...
Tyler Agee is a friend of mine, and he helps program a lot of the Battlescribe stuff. And he's a great man, by the way. He's amazing. Anyway, I think he said 95% of it's done. Like, if you want, you can go, if you have the PC version, you can just go on GitHub right now and download it. Like, it's not quote unquote guaranteed because it's not official released, but it's all there already. So it's just tweaking little bugs. But Like I did it for my Custodes so that I don't have to use my little like JPEG of all the point changes to make my lists. Even though with Custodes it's pretty simple, you're only running like 20 models. But it's yeah, I think we're there. I think we're ready. I think it's now going to be the cool part of seeing how people try to crack a meta without being able to play competitive games, right? And I think that's also something people need to consider when they're watching this stuff. Is local metas are going to look like they're the king shit.
Yeah, we're not going to see a mix of metas for a long time now. Like I think the soonest we could possibly see it is if LVO actually goes ahead, and I'm of the opinion it's less likely than likely it happens.
I don't think it is.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
but that'll be the first. Well, the LGT just cancelled. Yeah, just actually legit pulled the plug.
Yep.
And that was like going to be our first big possible milestone tournament. But yeah, next one will be what LVO, and that's still 6 months away. And look, if that happens, I'll be very surprised.
Same.
But past that, exactly what Pete was saying. Local metas, just focus on those. Just focus on what you're going to play against, because in all likelihood, that's all that matters. I mean, people will be sharing experiences and sharing armies and stuff, but it's not going to be like it was, a year ago when everyone knew what everyone else was playing, what everyone else was winning with. And it's never going to be like if there is a big dog, top-notch player that you know in your area, tailor for that guy. Just look at what that guy does and try and beat him, because that's the most important thing to focus on at the moment. Don't try and worry about what Jim Vessel's running and TJ Lanigan and guys of that ilk.
And I think that's like I've been talking a lot with a lot of players, and one of them in particular, Tim Pinney. He plays for Brohammer. He's in Florida. He's got a really competitive meta, but he's constantly like showing off lists for Custodes, and we're talking them through. And I know like there's a lot of guys that look at them and they're like, "Oh, why are you doing this?" And he's like, "Well, listen, like, but I want you guys to understand. My local meta is like 5 really good Death Guard players and like 1 really shitty AdMech player." And so I don't care about literally anything else. All my lists are like, how do I kill Death Guard? So don't look too far into this, right? Like maybe Death Guard are the meta and then this will work. But if it's not, like, I mean, I can't kill hordes with this. That's not what this does. This is meant to kill Plague Marines and kill like rhinos and Chaos Spawn. And that's it. So
I also, oh no, go on, Adam, after you, please.
No, you go. Yeah,
no,
I keep
no,
interrupting you, mate. Go.
No. Mine's moving the conversation on. So if you got something to say to me,
okay. Yeah, like there's 34 playable armies in 40k just on GW side, not even on the Forge World side of things. There's 34 playable armies and factions. So that does include Sisters of Silence or Assassins and things like that. So literally focus on the 3 or 4 of those you think are going to be most prevalent wherever you are. And exactly what Pete said. Focus on that stuff. Don't worry about trying to factor in 20 of the best of them. Just like pick 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with that as well. I also like the fact that we're the meta. Get up right now, go look at yourself in the mirror, eyeball, 2 fingers. You're the meta now, baby. Yeah, am I the captain? No, you're the captain.
You're the captain.
The thing that I think maybe I'd like to end on, get your guys' opinion on, is obviously number one. I think the first outing that we'll really maybe see might be the WTC next year. Maybe like I'd be excited to see that if hopefully we'll have COVID pulled together by then at least. But and I'd like to see what all the other nations bring together as well, because I know that there's whole countries with like foreign language podcasts that we don't know anything about and we don't hear about sometimes, and then they just bring the thunder, which is so fun. But I guess for me, the one negative that I'm a little bit disappointed about is looking at those secondaries. Is I'm a little bit scared when we finally do get the codexes, in that we have another bit of a haves and have-not situation going forward. And what I mean by that is in the codexes coming up, they've said that there are actions and there are secondaries that are specific to those codex units, and obviously also maybe a bump in power level as well, or maybe a rethinking of how to use 9th edition rules, but we'll put that to the side and hope that there's some sort of parity. So what do you guys think of that? Because that does concern me, that there's like, what if my Gene Stealer Cult army is 18 months away for my actions, but that really explodes how I play my Gene Stealer Cults.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what do you think? Yeah.
GW has done this before, and it did not work out very well. They had tactical objectives that were custom for each army, and the imbalance was ridiculous, right? Like, Gene Stealer Cults in particular, and Thousand Suns, their tactical objectives were like Thousand Suns was like cast 5 psychic powers a turn in a game or 6, and get 6 victory points for the end of the game. Like what?
It was auto 3 points.
That was what you did that in turn 1, and you were like, okay, problem solved. Gene Stealer Cults was kill 6 units over the course of the game. You get 6 victory points. And then like Tyranids was you had to like have a Termagant kill 16 people in real life, and you got 3 plus D3. And like it was all over the place. Like so it's very I'm hopeful that they've learned. But yeah, like it is an honest concern there with people getting more options and the speed at which rules come out. Is that going to be a thing? I would much prefer it if the custom secondaries came out all at once. If they were just like, hey, this will be in your codex. Here's like a PDF file with all the ones we're planning.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that would be really, really good. I hope to see that too, because I think that would be. Otherwise, we'll have a very much. I'm all for, by the way, these secondaries in codexes. Actually, like not in codexes.
I think it adds flavor.
Yeah. That's my point. And also really adds to how an army will play, right? Like their style. And if there are at least more than one option, if there's a bunch of options, I think that would be nice. And if they somehow maybe tied those into the sub factions or. Made it so that they're more in flavor with the rules, that would be sweet as. But currently not going to.
I have a question. So I've watched this show a handful of times. I was going to say plenty of times, but people keep saying this is an actual 40K. So TY winning. This is an actual show, not enough adjacent. What do they mean by adjacent? We're supposed to be spinning more shit here.
Bull crap. Usually we just talk about placenta.
Do we want to give 10 minutes to the last of the show to just whipping out just random shit?
Well,
I tried talking about fairy bread, but you just blew it off. You were like, whatever.
Yeah, you were just so focused.
Don't
talk about my fairy bread.
That's right, mate.
Adam, have you watched the TV show Derry Girls? I think is the first question.
I have. I like it. It's fantastic.
Really good.
He is lying.
That's good. I also I wonder how much say Val got in naming his baby is my other thought that I had today. I was like, how much? Because getting Val in there in the first name, that's my question. I was like, that's a big shout. I'm surprised he got it.
As far as I understand, Valfred is just part of his heritage. Like there's 8 generations of Valfreds. So he's just continuing that lineage, that way of doing things. It's like Catholics always having to be Mary or John somewhere in your name. The Val Heffelfingers all have to be Valfred at some point, or Valfrina.
Is it like a Lich King or there must always be a Val?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like Highlander. There can be only one.
So eventually
Val
his son has to raise up and defeat him.
Val and his son run across the beach, feeling the quickening. With Queen playing in the background.
Yeah,
such as life.
To live forever. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question if you want a little bit of adjacent stuff, but I won't keep you too long, Pete, because I know it's super early and we've hit our time. Do you guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'm not going to give you which number is good or bad, how much do you love the Facebook comments on a 40k thread? How much? Because they fill me with joy on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
I have.
9,
I look forward to them more than the content. I literally the first thing I'll do when there's any decent release, I'll look at, especially Forge World. I don't know if it's because people who play 30k feel more entitled, or because they feel more neglected because they don't get as much goodness as other players. I am a 30k player, guys. I showed off my sweet Contempted before, but man, they unleash on GW right on GW that is not what you promised. Like no other before. The other pieces of interplay when we see new models for 40k or stuff or new releases I will say the app. Holy fuck, was that a treasure trove? And I get all this stuff when I wake up first thing in the morning, because usually GW releases their stuff about midnight Australian time. So I wake up and I look at my thing. I'm like, this is going to be good. And I get out my cereal. I'm like, yeah, I'm good for half an hour here. It's fantastic.
Yep. It's swell. Like I've said multiple times, I have a little heart gremlin. He's a little tired about what's been going on in the world, but every time there's an announcement or a leak, I can go on to Facebook and my heart gremlin just like eats it all up. He's just like, "Oh yeah, look at all these knee-jerk reactions without any like context. It's beautiful." Oh, and it makes my heart sore. It makes it sore. And not because I think these people are 100% wrong either, because they might be right, but just like how angry immediately they got without any like checking anything else out. The app one, at least that one, I could see why people were annoyed.
Yeah.
I was annoyed. But it just like the viscera. Oh,
It's my
so
favorite.
good.
It's my
Yeah.
favorite. Listen,
Anyway.
if you're one of the guys out there, I know I can hear. I just want to say, don't stop,
babies.
This is not me saying don't do it. This is me saying carry the fuck on, go deeper.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. Get more. I want to see
Soldier
memes,
on.
outrage, the whole thing. Anyway, it's been a
Huge.
pleasure. It's been having a pleasure having you both on. Pete, you've got to go. I'm so sorry.
I do. It's okay. Bye-bye.
Good night. It was lovely
Night,
to see
Pete. Loads of love. Adam, it's also lovely to have you on the show, and we're going to get to hear your podcast soon. Once you post it out, we'll obviously share it.
Yes, it'll be hopefully this Thursday or Thursday Australian time, rain or shine, in one more form or another. It'll be coming up. It'll
Okay.
hopefully explode. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean
But,
that's really exciting.
So I'll just sell it for a little bit if I've got a time for a plug.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, go for it.
So it's a parter of the same ilk as regular Art of War, is Art of War Down Under. So the first half is going to be it's literally going to be reviewing content. So there's a lot of Twitch streams out there do these things of this ilk for Magic and whatnot, and of loads of other things. But I don't feel like there's a dedicated just reviewing and breaking down of content stuff for G-Dub. So I'm going to try and do that and make that my niche. I feel like there's so many variety programs for podcasts out there that you need to get kind of specialized at this day and age. But yeah, so the first episode is going to be breaking down content, new releases, very informative, telling you what's been added, what's been changed. Like for the episode I did with Nick Nanavati, we page by page, line by line, went through the Harlequin changes in Psychic Awakening, which was in a White Dwarf, and then went through the points as well. And so I gave you a full breakdown of all that. And then part two, we put that stuff into practice. So we take what we've learned, what we've dissected, and we make lists out of it. We write stuff. We do the go through the tech choices, things you might want to pick for secondaries, things you might want to pick for deployment types, things you want to put in reserves, really making use of all that stuff game to game. So yeah, look out for it. If that's something you're interested in, please look us up on Facebook, look us up on Patreon.
Yeah, there we go. And I'll include the links in the show notes below. And you can't really support a better group of people than Adam and Diffie, in my opinion. Like you can't. Legends in the community, and I remember giving them a sweaty hug, but 2 years ago, at CanCon, working their balls off in 1,000-degree heat to make 40. And really, I feel like it's really thanks to you guys that you've put Australian 40k on the map. Like, we talk a lot. I don't know if Neil's still in the chat as well. There's quite often that kind of Northern American kind of bent to a lot of the content that's out there. But you guys have like made yourselves a voice that's out there, which is good because we need those communities. All the Aussies, and there's a whole bunch of Aussies in the chat right now who do the same also for Age of Sigmar as well. And it's nice seeing all those kind of like those guys collate and mix together. So you guys have done a wicked job. So kudos to you.
The Dwellers Below still going?
Yeah, the Dwellers are.
They're my boys. They're my boys, man.
The Dwellers are actually more of a variety broadcast now. Obviously, Nick, please release the tapes. That's a joke. But yeah, they're still going. Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of amazing guys out there as well in Australia. Australia's full of legends. I feel like if I ever get the Irish and the Australians in the same room, it'll just be the best party I could have. Yeah.
Wild as fuck. But yeah, that was the whole point of me starting content creation. I didn't feel like Australia was represented. I feel like we got a very unique community, very unique culture, and we got a very unique way of playing the game. People always look at the Australian meta as this wonky, doesn't quite make sense to them thing. And I said, well, that's not wonky. It's our flavor. It's the way we enjoy playing the game. And it's the way things have been polarized for us. And I wanted to bring that and give that exposure out there. And yeah, I'm just so happy that hopefully some of it's rubbed off and done some good.
Interestingly, exactly the same experience in Age of Sigmar. Like, you look at the Australian meta and you're like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, they're just like, calm down, son, we've got this. And I'm like, okay. And then you go over, like the good example I have all the time is like, not this CanCon, but the CanCon before, like every Australian podcast or show, they'd just be like, oh, bloody corn, bloodbound. I was like, shut up. They're like, Gore Pilgrims. I was like, no one cares about Gore Pilgrims. Then I go to an event, 220 people, 6 rounds, so like you get the thing, Gore Pilgrims take it out, and I was like, do you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Like, so I think that's decent. Anyway, I had a pleasure to have you on the show. Obviously, we'll include everything in the show notes. Podcast guys, stay hydrated, please. Drink loads of water. Stay healthy. Look after yourselves. Can't do it without everyone on Patreon and Twitch chat. Thanks for making it great. You guys rock. We'll see you all tomorrow. Yes, and join us on the 40K show on Thursday if you're excited. See you soon, and goodbye.